好，欢迎再回到现场。我想在今天的单元比较特殊，我们没有在摄影棚，但是我特别邀请到我们经济学家辜朝明先生呢，来到我们录影的现场。我想今年是一个非常特殊的一年。那么从2020年的1月23号武汉封城到现在，那么全世界在武汉肺炎的疫情的笼罩之下呢，大概已经进入了8个多月了。这8个月当中，我们看到一个全世界都受到这场疫情的影响，不管在经济上或在生活方式呢，都受到很大的冲击。那么今天我们请到的辜先生呢，这一场疫情对他人生也是非常巨大的改变。我相信他这一辈子当中没有在台湾停留时间这么长，所以我想他这一次停留在台湾超过半年，这半年里面他带着夫人走访台湾各地，我相信他一定看到非常多的台湾的变化。所以今天我特别在辜先留在台湾不知道他什么时候回日本，但是我在他回日本之前呢，特别邀请他来跟大家谈谈他在这一次逗留在台湾所看到台湾的所有的一切呢，来跟大家分享。辜先好我们看到这一次，因为你从来没有这样很仔细的看过台湾这一次我相信在台湾你有这么长的时间，很慢慢来看台湾的这种变动那我想你这一次看到台湾的景象，跟我们观众朋友来分享一下。
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am one of those who are affected by the coronavirus. Got stuck in Taiwan for now 6 months. And I learned a lot about how Taiwanese government operated, how the society operated against this coronavirus. And I just wish that Japan had the same government so that Japanese situation would not be as bad as we saw. I mean, I think Taiwan did a beautiful job every step of the way, and I think people in Taiwan should be very proud of the government you have and all the bureaucrats who worked to make this happen. And so every time I call my office in Tokyo, people say, stay there, stay there. It's always the opposite. Before, my company or Japanese companies would never say, stay over there, come back right away. But this time they said, don't come back, stay there because you're at the best place. And because of all the internet IT connection, I could do all my work through offices in Taiwan. And so actually I was able to do every report that I had to write, I was able to do it here. And so yes, I learned something. I learned a lot of new things sitting here. As for Taiwan, my impression is that the infrastructure that the government has put in over the years have made a huge progress. I'm very impressed by the roads and other things compared to 30, 40 years ago. I remember 40 years ago, if you want to move between different points within Taipei, it still took like 40 minutes, 1 hour because sites are more, everything was congested. But now, if you plan yourself well, you can go back and forth with very certain timing. And I'm very impressed by the way the traffic lights work, how the streets are put together. And the highway system going to Keelung and Yilang, those are very well done with lots of nicely built tunnels. So it's such a big difference from Taiwan I remember 30, 40 years ago. At the same time, then maybe I should say, I consider this Taiwan as a kind of a no-nonsense economy. No-nonsense means everything is very straight, and there's no extra luggage. For example, in a lot of Taiwanese restaurants, when you order, besides whatever you order, cao mi fan or cao fan, if you order, let's say, a beer, the shop owner could tell you, oh, go buy at 7. We don't serve beer. This is unthinkable in Japan or in anywhere else. They want to make more money by selling you beer or Coca-Cola or coffee. But in many Taiwanese restaurants, they don't bother with that. Not only they don't bother with that, I was in this 牛肉面 in Zhongli, where not only they don't bother with that, they give you all these things free of charge. And not only that, they give you ice cream free. I was shocked. First of all, I didn't realize that ice cream after 牛肉面 is a very good combination.
我赶快。
牛肉面有一点辣，有一点酸。You have ice cream right afterwards. Everything comes out perfect. So I was first of all surprised that they thought of ice cream. But the fact that this was free, 免费的，大家都可以的。I thought that was an excellent idea. Because 牛肉面, maybe we adults might like it, but the kids might not like it too much. But if there's a free ice cream, the whole family can go and they enjoy the meal. And the fact that 牛肉面 and ice cream match very well makes the whole experience so enriching. And the fact that this shop is willing to offer ice cream and like 5 or 6 kinds, not just one kind, and it's a pretty good ice cream also, means that this shop is so confident that my 牛肉面 is the best 牛肉面. If they don't have that confidence, they cannot do this. And in that sense, I really think this is a no-nonsense economy. They don't play around, try to sell you ice cream, they try to sell you coffee, a beer. They just fight with you with 牛肉面 only. And I like that very much. When you look at Japan, for example, Toyota. Toyota was doing very well, had lots of money. So people like us, Nomura or Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley, we go to Toyota and say, you have 2 trillion yen of cash. Let us manage it. And we make it 3 trillion, 4 trillion. Toyota said, no, we are not interested. We want to put all our expertise on making good cars. If we put someone else in charge of managing money, your stock market and so forth, then there will be less management talent to make good cars. So if the money accumulates in the bank, so be it. We don't bother. If it earns 1%, 0%, they don't care. They want to put every brain cell in making good cars. And that's how Toyota became the top company in the world. So that's a big Japanese story, but I see the small such stories in Taiwan, that 牛肉面. They are willing to give you free ice cream because they know that their 牛肉面 is the best. That's how much concentration Taiwanese people put on what they're doing. And so what I found was that in any parts of the world, if you pay a lot of money, you get good food. That's true everywhere. In Taiwan, you pay very little money, you still get something very good. And that's because they put in that much effort in making all these little things. Even the the small places, some shops on the side, they still come up with very good food because I think they put in that much concentration. And that you don't see in many parts of the world. In Japanese restaurant, in Japan, there are a lot of restaurants. Everything is okay. Mama hoo hoo. Nothing good, nothing bad. You don't remember after going there. But in many of these Taiwan shops, you go in there, maybe not everything is good, but some of them are fantastic. And I think I found that as one of the key features of Taiwan. At the same time, I thought Taiwan cities can be a little prettier. Taiwan's per capita GDP is already pretty high, higher than some European countries almost. But if you go to these European cities, and many Taiwanese tourists were going to European cities They are very beautiful.
对，
And then here, the food is good, infrastructure is good,
对
so many things are good, but the cities are not very pretty.
对
And I sense that some of the buildings, once they are built,
对
I'm sure they looked nice when they were built,
对
but they are never repainted, never cleaned,
对
never repaired,
对
and never washed.
对
So 50 years later, 40 years later, they become very ugly.
对
And so if we could do something about that,
对。
I think this place will be a very nice place to be.
你看那个六本木，
是啊
日本那个都更、虎之门，那个都是让大家惊叹的。
That's how Japan began.
对
Roppongi Hills
Yeah.
is where everything began.
对
It took, the whole building took 17 years.
对
Of the 17 years, 16 years
对
was to work out all these property rights
Yeah.
of so many people who had the land there. Once they're all cleaned up, they were able to make the building in 1 year.
Yeah.
So 17 years altogether. But since the fact that they took 16 years means all the interest cost
对
the Mori building had to shoulder.
这个申集团用了很大力气去发展那个日本的都更，那个是那个叹为观止。你看六本木到虎之门啊，那个都是气魄非常大的。台湾现在差太远了。
And because it took 16 years, everything became so expensive.
哎
And so Mori building could do it because Mori had a lot of money. But average people cannot do it. So it's still very limited. Here a little bit,
对
but the average houses are still very low. I hope Taiwan will not make that mistake and put in proper laws so that it's easy to do this. But even under the best of circumstances, Dukan takes a long time.
哎
Even under the best of circumstances, it may take 5 years, 10 years, and then you do this part, you spot this part. By the time the whole city is
哎
rebuilt,
哎
we'll be too old.
哎
So that so-called redevelopment has to happen.
哎
But at the same time, we should also try to put together some sort of a program to clean the buildings we already have.
哎
Because if we clean it or repaint it, I think this city can look very nice.
哎
And so if I could do something about the Taiwan, I really like to clean buildings.
啊，可以明白。
Maybe we can make a company to clean buildings and paint the buildings
eh.
so that this whole city will look nicer.
我们的基础建设哦，现在其实台湾现在的国民所得啊，我们不断的在拉高，但是呢，对城市建设的投入，其实硬体建设各方面的都不足，所以我一直在想说，政府或各县市直辖市的市长如何让这个城市啊变得更美丽哦。我们从机场，如果有外国客人来坐飞机，你经过高速公路一高的时候呢，你看到新北市两侧大概都是铁皮屋啊，哈。然后呢，你到了这个建国南北路的时候，你就经过建国南北路两侧都是又老又旧的房子，这个印象分数是会打折的。那我想怎么样能够让这种硬体建设，我们用都更的话，我特别举到日本的例子，日本的很多的都更的规模，他们花了很多的时间，然后呢解决很多的问题，把这个城市变得更美丽。你知道，如果你在台北车站，你拉个行李出来，我们会非常多的不方便。但是在日本，你看到那个车站大楼每一个地方，它那个连接，包括车站跟大楼的连接，会让你感觉到宾至如归啊。这种是在这种很细腻的功夫啊。刚刚顾先生也特别举到冰淇淋跟牛肉面的搭配啊，这个叫 no-nonsense 的 economic 哦，这个我讲是非常传神的哦。好，这个下来要请教这个顾先生，就是说，我们现在看到这一场疫情对全世界的经济带来非常巨大的伤害。我看到第二季的时候，美国的经济成长率是季的衰退是32.9%，欧元区的负12.1%。我们也看到日本哦，大概负27.8%，就季对季了哦。那这样的一个大的衰退，台湾是负0.73%。 这个每一个国家大概在这个回合当中啊，除了中国跟越南是正的以外呢，其他大部分都是衰退的啊。这种衰退，尤其欧美情况是非常的严重，所以这个疫情已经持续了8个月了。我在请教辜先生，就是说，我们如果看这场疫情如果持续很久，对未来的世界经济会带来什么样的冲击？
Well, this is a natural disaster. Well, Chinese-made natural disaster maybe, but it's a natural disaster. And when you are faced with natural disaster, what are the correct macro policy responses? Monetary policy, fiscal policy. And in this case, I think fiscal policy will have to be the upfront. So this is, I'm talking about countries other than Taiwan. Taiwan, you did a beautiful response at the beginning, so you don't have to worry about this problem. But for all the other countries where the economy collapsed, you need a massive fiscal stimulus to make sure that companies do not go bankrupt in this process. Because if you allow them to go bankrupt because their revenue fell 1/3 or 1/2, then even after vaccine is found and the medication is there, economy will not be able to recover anymore because so many companies are dead. And so US realized that, Japan realized that, Europeans realized that, so they put in all sorts of ways to keep the companies alive, which I think is essential. And I'm glad that they did it. They all hoped at the beginning that within 6 months or so, everything will be fine again, that there will be a medicine, and maybe a year later, there'll be a vaccine. Unfortunately, it took much longer than that. Vaccine is still not with us, and it may still take another 3 months, 6 months, or even longer. So then what do you do? A lot of governments are running out of money. And even in the United States, they don't know what to do next. Japan also. I would argue that they should continue doing what they're doing, and central bank should support this. And why the central bank should support this? Because if the central bank don't support it, government is borrowing money, private sector is running out of cash, they also try to borrow money, interest rates will go very high, and that will make everything more difficult. More companies will go bankrupt. And we're not going to have the kind of stock market we have today. It's will be a total collapse. So central bank has to support it. Then the next question is, but if the central bank print money to support this fiscal policy, do we get inflation next? And my answer to that is probably not. No inflation. Why? First of all, the money that is being spent through fiscal stimulus is to support the economies from collapsing. It's not pushing the economy higher. It's keeping the economy from going lower. So this cannot be inflationary. Once vaccines are available and people go back, at the beginning, I'm sure people wanted to spend a lot of money, go to places, and so forth. But once the economy begins to normalize, my guess is that people will start saying how important it is to have savings. Because during this itching period, those people who are hurt most are the people who had least savings. Americans typically don't save much. That's why they're hurting so badly. Taiwanese, Chinese, Japanese, we save a lot. That's why these economies are doing relatively well. But after this experience, I'm sure Americans will start saving money. I'm sure British will start saving money because they went through this very painful process, 6 months, 1 year, desperate process. So once they start saving money, what happens? If in a national economy, if someone is saving money, someone has to borrow money to keep the economy going. But if everybody starts saving up money and no one borrows money, economy actually goes down. And we saw that from 2008, the Lehman crisis. After Lehman crisis, economy collapsed, and economy entered what I call balance sheet recession. Everybody's repairing balance sheets by paying down debt. But because everybody's paying down debt, which is same as saving money, economy kept on going down and down. And government had to come in and try to support the economy.
Right.
So Japan did it, United States did it, Europeans couldn't do it.
Right.
So Europe did very poorly, Japan and US did relatively well. At that time, a lot of people in economics also said, well, why don't we print money? So as you know, Japan, United States, Europe all did QE, quantitative easing. Massive amount. No inflation. No
这个
inflation.
跟你讲那个资产负债表的修整是一样的。
Exactly,
哎
exactly.
哎
So what I think will happen once people start rebuilding savings after we come out of the pandemic is that people start saving money. So we go back to the world we had in 2008. So because people are saving money like crazy, no matter how much money is in the system, we will not get an inflation. And my guess is that why Jay Powell in United States or others, Lagarde in Europe, are willing to do that much money financing, I think is because they learned the lesson from 2008. That in these circumstances, where the private sector as a whole is saving money, inflation is not going to be a problem, so we can continue to support the government.
好，这个顾先生对于传承那个，他花了不断的在解释，这个全世界印了很多钱啊，最后都没有通货膨胀啊，这个网络它就跟原来在资产负债表的调整当中啊，这个一方面在印钱，但是一方面在存钱啊，大家就还债啊，结果到最后其实那个世界就在那边，原来跟大家想象的是不太一样，所以这个回合大家可以看到，美国有非常多资深的专家，包括像诺贝尔奖的克鲁曼啊，或是索罗斯啦，或金罗旧斯啦，他们一开始不断的示警说这个世界完蛋了，但是到现在为止其实没有发生太多大事。这个就是中央银行还是用各种手段，用各种扩大支出的方式呢，在挺这个经济。而最后的结果，我想大家比较关注的就是顾先生怎么看美国总统大选。我看最近我们在视频上看拜登接受访问，结果好像突然睡着了，还有鼾声啊，这个很多人很震惊哦啊！这个最近我发现，川普的民调好像也追上来了，也就是说，哎，这一场选举，我相信到9月29号那个总统辩论大概就分出高下了。那美国总统在这个选举当中，对美国的经济或未来世界的秩序，我相信影响非常大。你怎么看这一场选战？
Well, we still have a few more months, so we don't know who's going to get reelected because in politics, you know, one little incident and the whole thing turns upside down. What Trump did during the last 4 years on economic policy, I think he did mostly correct things. Whether it's on our trade or it's on the macro policies, I think he did the right things. He pushed for infrastructure spending, and as you know, U.S. infrastructure is very bad, much worse than in Taiwan, much worse than in Taiwan. So there's a lot of work to do, and Trump really pushed hard for it. He tried to balance the trade, which I think many people in this part of the world are not very happy to hear. But this whole notion of free trade, the free trade is good for people, is based on the key assumption that the trade is balanced. If the trade is balanced, then even within the same country, there's a losers and a winners. But the gain the winners get is much larger than the loss of the losers. So you put it together, you gain from free trade. That's how I was taught in university about what the free trade is. But no professors told us that for this to be true, the trade has to be balanced or in surplus. And those of us in Asia, Taiwan, China, Korea, Japan, we all benefited from free trade because it was always in surplus. But suppose you're running a deficit, then the number of losers begins to grow. The last time United States had a trade balance, not surplus, balance, was 40 years ago. Since 1980, all the way to now, U.S. kept on running huge deficit. So the number of losers kept on growing. And finally, by November 2016, that group was large enough to elect Trump president. So for Trump, he has to do something about these people who were suffering from free trade. So in that sense, I think he did the right thing. Going forward, if he continues with these policies, I think these are good for United States and good for the world too. Because I think the trade should be more balanced. If you continue with this big imbalance, eventually we're going to all get hurt. For example, the dollar could collapse. Biden, on the other hand, were very concerned about this inequality. Some people are very rich, and most people are not very rich. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. And unfortunately, this is something we should expect in this kind of world. I separate the world into, well, actually 3 parts, but to simplify, 2 parts. When investing at home is the most attractive opportunity, I call that golden era. 精华时代. When the investing outside the country, outside Taiwan, is more profitable than inside Taiwan, then we enter what I call pursued economy. We are being chased by somebody. All advanced countries are in this state now, not this one. If you ask the Taiwanese businessman, where do you want to invest? Vietnam or here? Many of them, I'm afraid, still says Vietnam. You ask that in Japan, the same question, same answer. Ask the Americans, would you invest in Ohio or Mexico? They say, oh, Mexico. When you are in that world, the people who do ordinary work, blue-collar workers, their pay stop rising. Because these people are competing with people in Mexico, people with Vietnam, people with Bangladesh. So their pay doesn't go up. But those people who are not competing are still going to do well. So the gap keeps on growing. The only way I think we can address this problem is through education. To raise the level of these people so they can do more work, different work, so that the job will not have to be in Mexico. Trump did a very bad job of helping education. Extremely bad job. So the gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Biden, on the other hand, is very much concerned about this problem. And he really wants to put more money into education because he knows that the only way to narrow this gap is through education. So that part of Biden is desperately needed in the US, at least in the long run. So Trump has done a lot of good things over the last 4 years, getting the US economy to move. But we need Biden's input on the social side to keep the US societies from breaking down. It's almost breaking down. And so if Biden becomes a president, economic growth may be a little bit slower, because companies might have to pay more corporate taxes. But this inequality problem, other problem that we have in the United States will be also less, because I'm sure Biden will try to put everybody into the whole political process. And on international relations, Biden have said over and over that he will work with all the other countries together, not like Trump, who said, I don't care, you just keep on going by himself. And I think that's also a huge positive, because we have this problem called China. And individually, no one can handle this problem. We have to all work together so that China will understand that it's in the China's best interest to be part of the member of everybody. And for building that alliance, I think Biden will do a far better job.
OK， 这个辜先生刚刚花了很多时间解释川普跟拜登的路线 不同，不管谁当选总统，其实台湾利用在这个时候，我们开放了美牛美猪的进口，这个在台湾岛内引起非常大的大家不同立场的争辩。但是我相信这个是台湾跟美国改善关系一个最好的时机。那么现在我们会看到中国在面对川普压力之下呢，那各国开始对中国的表态。那现在这样看起来，对中国的经济所带来的影响，也包括像印度，中国跟印度的冲突，包括最近澳洲的表态，捷克也派议会的议长来台湾访问。我想这些事情啊加在一起，你怎么看未来整个这个大局当中啊，台湾是不是应该把握这样是一个机会，赶快跟美国把这个 FTA 或是 BTA 这个赶快签下来，能够在国际的这个贸易的组织当中给台湾有更大回旋空间？这个顾先生怎么看？
Well, I definitely think this is a big opportunity for Taiwan. If you listen to, for example, Pompeo's speech, he said, "We were wrong. We were wrong on China, and we were wrong on Taiwan. On China, they really hoped, and there are a lot of people in the United States who really wished that China would eventually become a democratic country, and they were correct for the first 30 years out of the 40. When Deng Xiaoping opened the Chinese economy, China really opened up. So many 留学生外面 so many tourists, completely different from the Soviet Eastern European communist system. So Americans thought, wow, Chinese one is a very different one. China will eventually be more like us. So they helped China a lot. And in helping China, they kind of put Taiwan down. Said, don't say anything. Exactly, everything's opposite. And then with a new government in Taiwan, China, the Chinese going in the opposite direction.
蓬佩奥说，我们这30年是故意是蓄意边缘化台湾啊，这次情况完全改变了。
Exactly, that's the whole situation. So now America realized that they made a mistake. China is not going to become democratic anytime soon. And not only that, it's actually trying to take over territories and all that. So U.S. is putting every effort to push back on China. And in that scheme of things, Taiwan is very, very critical. And so I think this is a first opportunity in 40 years for Taiwan to say what is needed to be said and do whatever that's right. And I think, I wish Taiwan will come out strong enough together with all the other countries so that China will realize that they are going the wrong way. If they realize that the path they're taking is not good and they make a change of direction, that helps not just the people here, but also help the people in China as well. So if we all stand strong together, I think that's a benefit for not just Taiwan, but for the people on the other side of the Taiwan Strait as well.
好，今天非常感谢顾先生今天给我们解开很多迷津啊。大家可以看到，我刚才说我们现在要开放美牛美猪的进口啊，顾先生说他吃的美国的猪肉已经吃很久了，那这个也是。我相信在过去从2018年3月美中贸易开始角力之后呢，我对台湾的未来我一直给台湾很高的评价。那么我们可以想象得到，在邓小平从1978年改革开放一直到现在2018年的时候呢，中国在过去是走了一个开放的路线，那后来呢，它越来越极权独裁。那在这个地方呢，它跟国际间的这种压力啊，就逐渐的上升。我相信在这个地方啊，美国重新在寻找伙伴。大家如果最近有时间的话，尽量去上 AIT 的这个 FB 的网站。AIT 的网站当中啊，不断的传递非常多的讯息，也包括他说真朋友、真进展、真性情。我想这是一个在台美关系啊呈现40年当中啊从来没有过的一个景象。那我想今天我们非常感谢顾先生把他在台湾所看到的他的感想，然后呢对美国的经济跟全球经济在疫情当中的未来的演变，同时也把美国总统大选对未来世局的影响，最后呢，我们看到中国经济跟台湾这一次在台美关系的改善当中，看到 大家所看到台湾40年来从来没有过一个荣景。我相信今天辜先给我们带来一个非常珍贵的一课哈。那我想今天谢谢辜先，
谢谢。
好。